Hello and welcome. We're here today with a special guide brought to you by the experts at My Tax Accountant. We're talking about the winter fuel payment. Now, if you're a pensioner, you've probably heard of it, but did you know the rules have just been shaken up again in the 2025 budget? We're going to break down exactly what this means for the 2025-26 payment. Could you be eligible for up to $300 to help with your heating bills? Well, let's find out.
All right, so here's what we've got on the docket today. We'll start with the recent changes, get into the nitty-gritty of who qualifies now, and of course, how much you could get. Then we'll tackle that brand new income rule from the 2025 budget, cover some special cases, and wrap up with your key takeaways. Let's get right into it. So, first things first, why is there so much confusion around this payment all of a sudden? Well, to really understand where we are now, we need to take a quick look back at how we actually got here. I mean, this slide really shows the policy roller coaster this has been on, doesn't it? For years, it was a simple, universal payment for pretty much every pensioner. Then, boom, in 2024, the government announced it was being cut right back, linking it only to those on pension credit. As you can imagine, that caused a huge public backlash. Now, thanks to that pressure, the 2025 budget has brought it back for most people. But, and it's a big but, there's a new catch. Let's dig into what that means for you. So let's park all of that past confusion for a moment and just focus on what really matters. What are the simple, core rules for this coming winter? Okay, so it really just boils down to two main things you need to check. First up, your birthday. You need to have been born before that specific date you see right there. Second, it's all about where you lived during a very, very specific week in September. Let's break that second part down a bit more. Right, the qualifying week. Think of it like a snapshot in time. For this 1 week in September, the government basically takes a picture of your circumstances. And that single picture is what they use to decide if you get the payment. Your age, where you live, who you live with, it all comes down to what's happening in that 1 week. It's kind of wild, but that's how it works. And now for the part everyone's been waiting for, the money. How much can you actually expect to get? Let's move on. Because the amount you receive really depends on your age and who you're living with during that all-important qualifying week. So, the baseline payment for most eligible households is £200. This is what you'll get if everyone in the home who qualifies for the payment is under the age of 80. But that amount gets a nice little bump up to £300 for the whole household if at least one person who's eligible is aged 80 or over during that qualifying week. Now this table shows how it all works if you live with someone else who's also eligible. If you live alone, you get the full whack, £200 or £300. But if you live with someone, say you're both under 80, you each get £100. If one of you is over 80, the older person gets a bigger slice of the pie, getting £200. And if you're both over 80, you just split that £300 down the middle, so £150 each. Simple, right? Just a quick note on this, though. If you're receiving pension credit or a few other specific benefits, the whole thing gets a bit simpler. Instead of splitting the payment between people, the household just gets one single lump sum payment of either £200 or £300. Okay, stay with me here, because this next point is the biggest, most significant change that came out of the 2025 budget. And honestly, it's the detail that might just surprise you. This is where the new means testing really comes into play. So, while it's fantastic news that 9 million pensioners will now get this payment, it's not quite the universal benefit it once was. Here's the deal. If your individual income is over £35,000, you'll still get the payment sent to you, but HMRC will automatically take it back later. So, what exactly do they count as income for this £35,000 threshold? Well, we're talking about your total taxable income. And this isn't just about what you earn from a job, oh no. It's a much wider net that includes your pensions and even some of your savings. Let's be crystal clear on what counts towards that 35 grand. Your state pension and any private pensions, yep, they're in. Any earnings from work, included. And crucially, any interest you earn on savings that aren't in an ISA. What's not included? Well, thankfully, any income from your ISAs is safe, as are some tax-free benefits like attendance allowance. But that's not all. Here's where most people go wrong. This is a massive pro tip. You know that first £1,000 of savings interest you can earn tax-free? Well, even though you don't pay tax on it, HMRC still counts it as part of your total income for this specific rule. It's a really common trap that could easily nudge you over the limit without you even realizing. So how is this money actually taken back? You don't have to do a thing. It's all automatic. First, you'll get the payment as normal, probably in November or December 2025. Then, behind the scenes, HMRC will see that your income is over the limit. Finally, they'll simply reclaim the amount by adjusting your tax code for the following year. Or, if you do a self-assessment tax return, it'll just be added on there.
Theory is one thing, but let's make this crystal clear. Let's imagine two neighbors living in London. We'll call them Margaret and Arthur.
Okay, so Margaret is a freelance writer, and her total taxable income is £34,500. Arthur, next door, is a retired manager with an income of £36,000. Now, they both live alone, they're both eligible, and they both automatically get the £200 payment. But because Margaret's income is just a smidge under the threshold, she gets to keep it. Arthur, on the other hand, is just over the line, so HMRC reclaims his £200. It just goes to show how a pretty small difference in income can be absolutely decisive. All right, we've covered who is eligible, so now let's talk about who isn't. There are a few very specific situations where you wouldn't get the payment at all, even if you meet the basic age and residency rules. These are the pretty straightforward exclusions. If you were in prison during that entire qualifying week, you won't get the payment. Same goes if you'd been in hospital getting free treatment for over a year, or if you had certain immigration restrictions that stop you from claiming public funds. What about if you live in a care home? Well, the rule here is very specific. You won't be eligible if, and it's a big if, you lived there for the whole period from late June right through to the qualifying week, and you also receive pension credit or another qualifying benefit. It's that combination of the two things that matters. And what if you don't live in England or Wales? Well, if you're in Northern Ireland, you follow the exact same rules. But if you're up in Scotland, you have your own separate but very similar scheme. It's called the Pension Age Winter Heating Payment. The eligibility is pretty much identical, but it's all handled by Social Security Scotland, and the payment amounts are just slightly different. Whew, I know, that was a lot of information to take in, from policy changes to income rules. So to make sure it all sticks, let's just boil it all down to the crucial points you absolutely need to remember. So if you remember nothing else, remember these 5 things. 1, check that birth date. 2, know that the payment is somewhere between £100 and £300. 3, be aware of that new £35,000 income rule. 4, expect the payment to land automatically in November or December. And finally, number 5, and this is so important, you almost certainly do not need to apply. So if you get a text or an email telling you to click a link to claim your payment, it is 100% scam. And before we wrap up, a really important bit of housekeeping. Please remember that the information we've shared today is for general guidance only. Everyone's situation is unique, so you really shouldn't rely on this exclusively to make any financial decisions. This all leaves us with a final, pretty interesting thought. The payment now goes out to almost everyone, but it's then taken back from higher earners. So, is it still a universal benefit, or has it become something else entirely? It certainly redefines what this payment is all about for the years ahead. And because of all this new complexity, especially with those tricky income rules, getting expert guidance that's tailored specifically to you is more important now than ever before. To understand exactly how these rules might affect you personally, or for professional help with any other tax matters, we highly recommend getting in touch with the team at My Tax Accountant. Their contact details are right there on the screen. Thanks so much for joining us.